Good evening, everybody. How are we doing tonight?
Tickled
Oh yeah.
pink.
I don't.
Good.
Well, I wasn't.
Oh,
I was
good.
talking with the guy. I was talking to the people in the audience there. We got
Oh, well,
Andy Callie's in the house. Brian from Ohio. I believe Brian is in Ohio, right? Roger's in the house. Who else is in there?
ooh, Andy
Chris.
Callie's with us, of course.
Of course, Andy Callie is there. I
Yeah,
think.
Roger
I think
McKeon, yeah.
honestly, anybody else
Corey.
think that Andy
Corey.
Callie's a bot?
Yep.
I think he's.
Andy,
I
we
think he's.
need proof of life, brother.
I think he's
We need proof
that
of
that
life.
is true. We do need proof of life. I think he's a bot put
We
there by
want to
the
make sure
YouTube
you're not a
overlords.
figment of our imagination.
Mm. You notice he's always on all the ham radio live streams.
He is.
Everyone
He doesn't miss a beat, that guy.
He does
He's
not.
everywhere.
Yeah. Hey guys, everybody, thank you for joining us again tonight. It's going to be a good night. We have the man, the myth, the legend, the one and only, the famous Ara N6ARA.
Oh, geez. I didn't know I was famous. Hi, folks.
Well, famous or infamous, one of the two. I don't know.
Oh, there we go. Sure.
But,
Whatever works.
Thanks for having me.
Oh no, thank you. So you know I've had an opportunity. We've talked in the after chat of the ham radio crash course stuff like that. A lot of people, if they're not familiar with what you do, you've got a couple products that you have designed and sell, and one of them is a paddle that a very portable, lightweight paddle for portable CW operations. Although I suppose you could probably use that in your shack too.
Yeah.
Yeah. You've got some standing wave meters I've seen that are available. You've got a new one, which actually I own. It's the paddles that you can attach.
Oh,
for your
the tiny MIDI.
the tiny for doing CW on your mobile device through remote ham radio. And then you've just recently launched a YouTube channel, and you are going through the process. And that's what really caught my attention, was that you're kind of going through the process of designing an antenna. And building it. Yeah. So could you tell us a little bit about that? And actually,
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, everybody knows everybody else here on here. We don't have to worry about those guys. But yeah, tell us about it, because like I said last week, unlike those other ham radio live streams, we don't make our guests wait around a half an hour.
Oh, all right. Oh.
Yeah, so there we go.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I'll gladly dive in. Yeah. So for the last 4 years, I think it's been 4 years now. I've been doing a lot of summits on the air and parks on the air on the side as well. And along the way, I would run into problems or have ideas about what could make the activation better. What trinkets, could I buy to improve my kit? And sometimes I would, have this issue of, well, this product doesn't exist. I can't find something like this. And I ended up creating them for myself. And so the example I'm even alluding to here is actually the tiny paddle. I was activating, I don't remember which summit it was, but with my KX2, and the paddle that plugs into the KX2 broke. It didn't really break. The screw got loose and came out, and the whole thing fell apart. And I was lucky that I had gotten my 4 contacts I needed for that soda summit. And I started thinking, like, man, it'd be really nice if I could have a tiny little paddle that just like sits in my bag or is in my pack, that I can always carry around with me. So I don't even have to think about, do I care about the weight of this paddle? And it doesn't have to be super ergonomic, and it'll be a backup paddle, right? So if things break, you got it in your pack. And so I went home and I started designing one, and I ended up designing this little guy, which is a plug, like a 3.5 millimeter plug. Well, that sun is like saturating okay, well, you get the idea. You have the plug here, and then the paddle itself is a PCB board with these little bent pieces of brass metal. So they're just a little springy, and they make contact with the with the board down below. And so I made this for myself, and I posted it on the Soda Slack channel, and folks were like, "Wow, that's really cool. That's really neat." And then I went to sleep, and then I woke up the next morning,
Uh-oh.
and there was like 5 DMs, 6 DMs of people going like, "Hey, where can I buy one of these? Can you
I
make one
need
for
one.
me?" I'm like, "Okay, fine, sure. I'll make a few extra." Made a few extra. I sent it to them. I don't think I even charged them for it. And then they shared it with their friends and other people, and it just like started to pick up. And before I knew it, I was getting a bunch of orders, and then I realized, I'm like, okay, there's actually a reasonable amount of money coming in now that I need to start thinking about taxes and creating a bank account and spinning up an LLC. And like somehow got bullied into creating a business. Um and and it was amazing. Like, it was really an amazing moment in time for me, because I never thought of myself as like an entrepreneur or business guy. Like, I'm very much a
Yeah.
engineer. I'm a terrible salesperson. The fact that this company has even managed to stay afloat for the last 2-3 years is truly amazing. What the heck? Oh, okay.
Uh,
I don't know where that thumbs up came from, but cool.
You're on
that is
Mac, so
Mac's reactions.
I'm
What?
on
Okay, I need to
Mac.
turn
Yeah.
off that that setting later.
Yep.
Um, anyway, so right. So I had a bunch of folks, asking for these things, and these paddles started selling out. I couldn't keep up with the demand. And then folks, what was amazing though was, as it kind of permeated through the community, folks started coming up with ideas and messaging me on like, "Hey, you could improve this here and do that there." And one of the biggest requests was like, "Hey, can you make a model that has a jack connector instead of a plug connector?" Because the idea with this one was, you plug it directly into your radio's key port, and you don't need a cable. You don't need to remember to pack a cable,
Yep.
or maybe your cable broke. You can just plug it straight in, send your CW, and close your activation. But some people were like, "This is actually kind of a nice paddle. Like, I like the light touch to it, because you barely have to touch this thing, and it makes contact." Um, and so I ended up doing that and making the jack version of the tiny paddle. Oh my god! Okay, I'm gonna close my window because that is just like
Awful
really
sunny there in
impossible to see.
California.
Yeah, just a little bit of sun.
Yeah.
Um, and so it sits in this little case, and you could plug it into itself, and send your code that way. Um, and the other nice thing is, like, the protective case keeps it nice and safe when it's stowed away. Um, and these then quickly became the single most popular product that I'd ever built. And still today, I mean, there's thousands of these out there in the world now. And it's really cool
Um,
to see like photos of them too. Like, people post them online. Every now and then I'll
oh,
just like search like N6ARA just to see what people have done, or where in the world they are. And it's like some, post about some dude in Japan. It's all, the post is all in Japanese, but there are my little paddles
there you
sitting
go.
on a mountaintop in the middle of Japan. I'm like, this is like the
It's like,
coolest thing ever.
where in the world is Carmen San Diego, etc.?
Yeah,
It's where in the world is Ara's paddle.
yeah. It's been really
How?
cool. And yeah.
So,
Oh,
Ara,
I
I
was just
can't help but notice that you're kind of like a crack dealer. You give your product away for free and get everyone hooked, and now they all want one.
Yeah, except I would, in that analogy, be a very bad crack dealer in that I don't price my stuff very well.
Oh
Like,
well, that's part of it.
I could easily be charging more. I do try to charge a somewhat fair price. Like, these
Mhm.
paddles are like $30.
Oh, sweet.
And that's assembled, by the way. So I sell kits. I think they're like $20 for the kits. But it's a father-son business. My dad actually is retired, and he loves like automating things and building stuff. So he's like, in his home lab, built like this whole, the N6ARA factory essentially lives on like one
Yeah.
table at his house, and he cranks these things out like super quick. So
Wow.
it's been a lot of fun. So yes, also made in the US. I should probably say that as
Even
well.
better.
Yeah.
Even better.
Mm. So
Yeah.
how much do you think one of those paddles weighs?
Oh gosh, I should know this
What's the
because
impact?
my
'Cause I
my
know from a soda
QRZ
standpoint.
ad has the number.
Okay. I
It's
I
it's
know
like
from
tens of
a
grams.
hiking okay, from a hiking standpoint, weight is there's a tax on weight, right? So the more weight you
Hmm.
carry, the the harder that becomes. And I did watch a video just popped up with you and the Soda Plus.
Oh yeah, with Mark.
When you guys were racing, trying to, I think you were trying to do four summits in the same day or something like
Yeah.
that. You got two.
Yeah, it was 3,
Wow.
but
3. Okay, yeah. But
Yeah.
that's the other side of this. With ham radio, it's the fun side of things. And watching that video with you guys just racing up the hill and goofing off and trying to it was like the Amazing Race ham radio
Yeah.
style.
We were
So,
we weren't even like, we hadn't even had any beer or anything. We were just like that was just our morning energy that day. And we had a goal. Yeah, it was 3 summits, and we on the forecast it said it was actually going to snow, which is kind of cool. We don't usually get a whole lot of snow in SoCal. And yeah, we just started messing around and having fun. And I love the nature aspect to this aspect of the hobby, right?
Yep.
Soda and Poda, like just getting out in nature and relaxing, sending some code, building some stuff at home, taking it out and testing it and getting it on the air is it's too much fun, man. I can't get enough of it.
So we have a ruling from the Peanut Gallery. And they said it weighs 8 grams.
Oh, ham radio duo.
Yeah.
Hi, Mike and Becky. Yeah.
So do you make just, I'm a little ignorant here to your products because I'm not doing CW.
Totally. That's great.
Yeah. But you make one model? Do you have other models? Do you have something bigger, something smaller?
Yeah, man, so I only have 2 models right now. One of the models, the plug model, can actually be connected to a KH1 through a little adapter. So it kind of makes it easy. So if you have one of those KH1s that are like this handheld radio by Elecraft, this just plugs right in and you could use it right there.
Cool.
But no, aside from these 2, I don't have any traditional keys that you would know of that are different from this. I have for the longest time thought about building a just like super high quality one, just to sort of cover the 2 ends of like really cheap, small kind of hobby paddles, and then go like, build the Ferrari as well while you're at it.
Yeah.
But as I'm sure all of you probably struggle with, you have more ideas and projects than you do time. So I'm sure I'll get to it someday.
Amen, brother. I got more projects than I got time.
Yeah. Though I should say, actually, in line with the paddles, I do have the latest one of the latest products, the Tiny MIDI, which is this USB-C paddle that has capacitive touch plates on the sides. So all you have to do is just make contact with it with your finger, and it registers DIT or DAW. And the idea is, it's not meant to be like a traditional paddle that you would connect to your radio, but instead you can connect it to your phone. So if you have the smart SDR app, or like with a Flex radio, or the smart mobile app, I think for ICOM, you can use this paddle like it's a regular paddle connected to your radio, but remotely with your phone.
Oh.
Let
Ooh.
me see if I can pull up. Oh my
Nice
gosh,
talk.
So does this just work with Marcus's apps, or is he the only one that's doing MIDI controlled radio apps?
As far as I know, yeah, as far as I know, in terms of like SDRs that support MIDI devices on mobile devices, I believe is it Mark? Yeah, Marcus is the only person who does that.
Yeah.
That said, there are a lot of like practice apps out there too. So Morsit, which is, oh my god, I need to figure out a better setup in the future. But Morsit, which is like a practice app that you can like tap on the screen to send with, the Tiny MIDI will also work with it. So you can sit here
cool.
and send code just holding your phone around. It also has a 3.5 millimeter jack on the bottom. So if you want to connect an external key, you could just plug it in there and practice with that. So this essentially becomes like a side tone generator / like practice tool as well.
Nice.
And I had this idea because I kept getting ham alerts on my phone of like my friends, calling CQ, and I had at that point recently gotten access to a Flex radio through a club I'm part of, and I could log into it, but I couldn't send with my phone easily. Like you could do the pre-canned messages, but I don't know. It's more fun to try to send. And I'm like, wow, does anybody make one that just plugs into your phone? You could do this. And I saw no one did. I'm like, all right, we're gonna bring this into the world, and built a few iterations. I gave one to the guy who gave me access, Mark, actually, from Soda Plus. I gave it to him, and I'm like, "You're my beta tester. Let me know." And he found also all sorts of problems, and we spent probably 2 months testing this thing. Like, I don't like crap products. They drive me insane. I don't like stuff that doesn't work. Like, I like reliability, consistency, like, good feel, all that stuff. And there were a ton of
Spoken
problems
like
with
a
the
true
firmware
engineer.
early on, but yeah, it's the electrical engineer inside for sure.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, and then once it sort of felt ready, and I, at some point it feels like you're polishing a cannonball, right? You're like, okay, I gotta stop adding features and mucking with it. Like, let's put this out in the world. And Josh made one video about it, and I sold out all of them, and then I had to do another production run. So
I
it was
think that's
good.
why I got a set. That damn
Oh, is
Josh.
it? Okay.
He's good for that.
Yeah.
He is good for that.
Yeah.
So I think next time I have
Yeah.
a used car to sell or something like that, I'm going to have Josh put a video out about it. I'm sure it'll sell
Yeah.
pretty
Good.
quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, and actually, tons of credit to Thomas K4SWL and Mike Kate MRD. I honestly don't think my business would even exist without them.
Mhm.
In the early days of the Tiny Paddle, I was, within word of mouth, a lot of folks knew about it, and I was selling at a reasonable rate. And when Thomas posted his first QR Peer article on this, my inbox blew up with orders. I mean, like overnight, it was nuts. I mean, there's a photo I have from like 3 years ago where that couch back there is just piles of boxes of orders ready to go out because
Wow.
of just one post he made. And yeah, this is the Thomas effect.
We'll have to. Oh, you're going to be at Dayton, is that correct?
Yes, I will be at Dayton. In fact, just this last week, we confirmed that we will have a booth there as well. So it's not going to be
Cool.
just me, Adam, K6ARK, and Joshua from Tuftlin is going to be there as well. So we're going to have our own booth,
Oh,
and
nice.
we're going to try to work shifts so we can also see people and do things. It was a bit of a struggle of like, do I want to enjoy the convention or do I want to work it? And last year was a lot of fun enjoying it. This year I want to try working it and see how that goes. So it should be fun. I'm excited.
Just bring extra cash for the flea market. I made that
Oh yeah.
major mistake. last
Oh
year.
yeah. I scored a gosh, what was it? A Kenwood like TH 7 or 4, something like that. It's a full duplex radio for like $20. And it was like, the person had no idea what they were selling. And they were like, oh,
geez.
the battery's dead. I'm like, that's a solvable problem. I'll take
Yeah.
that.
Battery's not
So
an issue.
there are gold nuggets. You just have to wake up early and get there early.
For real. I made that mistake last year.
I have a hard time walking through the boneyard. I really do. I guess it's to me. I'm always concerned about buying used equipment. I've been burned one time, and it was a big burn, and it still stings.
Well,
Dude, that's the worst.
But there are some golden gems in those flea markets to be found, and
Yeah.
you got to make an educated, weighed decision. It's all you can really do. If it's broken, can I fix it? Can I get it fixed?
Mhm, yeah.
It just the want has to really outweigh the need. Or
I
I'm
struggle if I see something too soon. If I see
Yes.
something like right away, that's like always the
I
worst
got it.
because you're looking, you're like, I haven't even made my way around. At a local hamfest here in Rochester, this past summer, I still have my backpack on and everything, and I'm going to our club's table, and next to right next door, they were selling at a table a Linko DJ G7, which is rare tri-band for 1.25 meters and 33 centimeters. And the guy's like, "Hey, Mike, I know you do the, you
Look at this.
Barb-
Look at this.
and
I got
there-
wait, no, that's not the right one.
no, that's a count. Yeah,
That was an icon, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was the ID50. Sorry, picked up the wrong one.
so
this is a
Yes.
cool radio.
yes,
Yeah.
Worst
And,
user interface ever designed by humankind, but
Yeah.
it's a cool radio.
the he's like 125 charger, everything works, and he had the aftermarket antenna on it. I'm like, I just got here. I go, let me set my bag down and my gear, get my gear out, and just give me a second. And but I'm like, that's a really good deal.
Yeah.
And I set my bag down. I grabbed a cup of coffee, and it was gone. And I was like, oh,
Lose, you lose.
I mean,
That's what stings to me right there.
ah.
Yeah.
And it's just because that indecision, like you're thinking to yourself, I haven't even
Hey,
like gotten a chance to get around and explore everything, and you don't know what else is out there, and you're thinking, wow, if this is how the day's starting, who knows?
Yeah.
hey, Mike, did you see the cool Alenco handheld that Ara picked up at the Rochester Hamfest last year?
No, he
Were
didn't.
you in Rochester?
No, but hey, at least somebody local got it, and it's somebody local that'll be hopefully on 125 and 33. So
Yeah, and
use it or
this
lose it.
surprisingly, I don't know about your area, but in Los Angeles, I was surprised to learn that people do monitor 23 centimeter on the calling frequency. I've like called before, and people like came back to me. I was like, really? Like,
Sweet.
folks have this in their scan list? Like, okay, and
Just for the
Yeah.
contesting out here, I think outside of that, I don't know that there's a lot of
much activity.
on
Yeah,
23.
I almost never hear anybody on there. I will open it up and listen every now and then, but yeah.
So I think something that you guys share in common that Freddie Mac and I know we don't have it. Jeff, I'm not sure if you guys have any peaks or not, but we have no soda summits here. I think Indiana has maybe 3 way down in southern Indiana, down by Kentucky, and it's they're small. At I think they barely are registered as a summit. But out there in Southern California, where you're at, I mean, it's mountains upon mountains, and that's beautiful. Mike, where you're at, you get what was it?
We have some.
yeah.
The challenge, and this is just kind of my interpretation of from what I've seen and heard from others. But New York, what's a challenge where I am in the Finger Lakes. I'm not in the Adirondacks. The Adirondacks is different, a lot more public land. But in the Finger Lakes, there are some sodas. I've done a few. I usually do ones that overlap with POTA because a lot of the others are on private property, and which can complicate it. And so
Yeah.
these the sodas may very well, and the closest ones to me are going to be on private, and they're not always accessible easily. So that kind of negates it.
Yeah. So it turns out summits are really great for RF, which means like radio stations and stuff will set up there and
Yep.
turn it into private land. So
Yeah.
that is a struggle. At least the nice thing, I think, in my opinion, I don't know if POTA has this, but with SOTA, there's like the user notes. Like you could submit notes about a particular summit, like it could be a link to your blog post. It could just be a nice little blurb like, hey, I got to this summit by going around this way, or, oh, this is closed private property.
Yes.
They have
I really
notes.
would love to see that for POTA.
That would be nice. POTA does not have that, but the I guess it's the mapping coordinator or whoever puts the information into that park or the entity page can put some notes in there, but it's not like it's available to everyone.
Yeah.
I think there's some
like, it'd be nice to
sites
know
that
if you-
are up and running outside of POTA. I think there's one like POTA Pics or something like that where they encourage people to share photos from the parks, and then I think there's another one that's kind of like a POTA wiki kind of. I don't know. I've seen a couple videos on it, but I haven't used it. But where they're trying to just get tips from everybody about where you can activate and what to expect. And,
Yeah. Or like, how much does the parking cost, or
Yeah.
a link to the
Yeah.
map of where the actual like boundaries are for the POTA park, which I've screwed up a couple times.
Yeah.
So
Well, there's
all
little
the spirit,
intricacies
right?
about the places that you go that you need to know, like the neighbor's dog will bite you if you go over here.
yeah, right.
You know,
Mhm.
Right.
really vital information you could use. Yeah, where me and Tim live, when our dogs run away, 2 days later, you can still see them running.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I got to say that's northern Indiana. That's up where Carlos lives.
Oh, well, yeah.
Southern Indiana. We're the glacier stopped just north of me, so we are in the foothills of northern Kentucky. Is where we're at.
Oh, I bet that's
Yeah,
beautiful.
so the ridges behind me in the state forest are like 1,100, 1,200 feet. They're not high, but it's a lot of ridges and ravines and stuff in the area where I'm at right now.
Huh?
But you go north of my town and then it's all flat, glacier cut farmland.
Are there at least POTA parks?
Oh yeah, yeah. So I have
okay.
13,000 acres behind me in a state forest of
That's awesome.
of park, and then it butts up to another state forest, which is another 10,000 or so acres, and then all that butts up to the Hoosier National Forest, which I don't know how many thousands of acres that is. So yeah, there's plenty of opportunities.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I only have like maybe 6 parks near me total. And they're all kind of hard to get to, and especially, with traffic and stuff, it's kind of annoying to get to some of them. I can get to 2 of them easily, but the other few are just a pain in the butt. And then there's like a whole bunch along the coast of California, Southern California. But like crossing the 405 is like a whole nother country. Like bring a passport, wait in line for 2 hours. It's horrendous. So I don't even venture that way.
Earlier you mentioned that the traffic is getting bad in LA, and I'm like, really?
Yeah,
in LA?
It was bad before.
When I was stationed in San Diego in the 90s, there was a 2-hour delay on the 5 just leaving the base. I mean, it was horrible.
Yeah. I think it was terrible. And then we had that like step function of the pandemic. So like traffic got great for like a long time. Yeah. And then there's like been this like slow hum as like folks are like returning to work and things are getting busier. I think we're back to, if not worse levels, honestly, of traffic. But, I'm at least fortunate enough that when I want to do soda, my like backyard is the the Angeles National Forest, which has like, I've lost count, like more than 20 soda summits there alone. So, I barely have to drive like 10 minutes to enter the forest and then an extra, 20 minutes or so into the rest of it.
Yeah, you said that's a national forest, so that's also a POTA entity then, correct?
It's also a POTA, yeah, actually.
Okay.
There must have been a lot of POTA hunters one day who were very happy with me because for 2+ years, I never uploaded to POTA. And I did a bunch of soda, right? And I was making tons and tons of contacts. And then someone's like, "Oh, why don't you just upload those, your logs to POTA?" And I'm like, "Oh, I can do that?" They're like, "Yeah, just like reformat, and your ADIF files," which I kept all of mine. And so I just sat there one day and I was uploading and uploading and uploading. I'm sure a lot of hunters were happy to get some extra rewards because like suddenly they had a bunch of hunts of me. Yeah. So if you're a soda activator, by the way, check if the soda summits you activated were in a park.
So you were talking about boundaries just a minute ago and everything. Well, while we were at Dayton, Mike, K8MRD, goes to the Huntsville State Park where he lives in Texas all the time. And he had some questions. Steve started digging in. We got into some maps and everything, and come to find out that his single entity is actually a threefer, because or at least there's a part of it.
That's awesome.
Maybe a twofer in there, but it come to find out the entire state forest is surrounded by a federal, a national forest, which puts it it's an entity inside of an entity then. So
yeah.
Good after evening, noon, Vince. How are you?
Hey, Vince.
There he is. So I didn't mention this earlier, but Vince said that he was busy tonight with the club meeting and he wasn't going to be able to make it on. And then my ham alert started going off, and he was POTA activated. So I don't know.
It's very suspect, but we love
might-
him. So we're going to look the other way on this
I don't know.
one.
He might wind up on ham court. You never know.
Hey, yeah, we need to get him on ham court.
Mhm.
I would have thought he would be tired of making contacts after her Woboda. Those guys were just cranking away for like 4 hours, just making contacts left and right. That was it. The ham radio workbench on the air event they had this weekend.
Oh yeah.
So like you could, if you could work all the folks, I assume you earned some award, but I was able to work Vince and Thomas K for SWL and George, but it was a lot of fun.
Cool.
And that's all that matters.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'll just say this, to back up a little bit to that conversation about boundaries. I was doing an activation at Fort Stanwix, which is in central New York, city of Rome. It's a Revolutionary War fort. And I knew that it would be a threefer, or could be a threefer, because it's in the Erie Canalway National Heritage Corridor, which is a large park spanning several counties, towns, cities. And I knew the Empire State Trail went by it. So I go into the gift shop, buy a park sticker before getting on the air. And I just mentioned to the clerk who had a window, and I'm like, I'm just so you know, I'm setting up an antenna, and it was mag loop, so it wasn't going to be anything huge. But like, I'm just setting up an antenna, I'll be doing radio in case you were wondering. I'm not asking permission. I'm just saying, just in case you're wondering what you're seeing, right?
This is what I'm doing, like it or not.
And and I said, but I just got a quick question for you. Is the Empire State Trail come through the park at all, or is it just stay on the sidewalk? And she's like, no, the North Country Trail goes through the park, though. And I was like, wait, what? And I realized it was a four-fer where I was, not a three-fer. As long as but I had to pick a picnic table that was in between the walkway in the trail in the park and then the trail that goes by the border. So I found the perfect spot, and it was perfect having a mag loop, because I didn't take up any space, and I got it done and whatnot. But anyway, that's my story. I didn't ask permission, but I found out it was a four-fer.
Never asked permission.
I was so excited. I was texting our mapping coordinator, who's one of my Elmers, and I'm like, I just realized Fort Stanwix is a four-fer. This is awesome.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
So
It's like
That's-
hidden gem unicorn of a park.
you guys are familiar with Archibald. I get it's his name. He's in the DC area.
Oh, Dell.
I
Yeah,
think
I know who you're talking about. Dell.
Is it Dell?
Yeah, well,
Well,
that's what he goes by nickname. It's a nickname. I'm blanking on his full name, but
okay.
Dell's.
I can't think of it. It's he's gotten into every time I
Yeah.
see it, I have to double take it
Yep.
to make sure it's not you. He had a park with me a couple weeks ago, and I swear he was in like a 8 park. He just kept
Yeah, I know
rattling
there.
off park numbers to me.
Yep.
And they said, then you can get the rest of them on my my QRZ page. I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
man. It was quite a few.
Yeah,
We're
it's
spoiled
interesting
up here because of all the history in the Northeast. It creates so
Yeah.
many more parks because
And
you have all these
I'm totally
battlefields,
jealous, too.
trails.
In
National
Delaware,
monuments
there's
and
a
everything.
lot too.
Yep.
Mostly because of the DuPonts, really. Thanks to them, they bought all the land up and then they gave it back to the state or sold it to the state, and they created parks. So
Well, bless their
parks
hearts.
are everywhere.
I am going to ask a favor of the community while I'm here. Our friend Dane, Kilo Delta 9. Oh gosh, what is it? WNY, Western New York. That's it. Kilo Delta 9, Western New York is he's in the chat. He's the portable ham. I'm going to put his YouTube channel in there in the thing. He is, I think, 3 subs away from being in a position to actually be able to live stream. And he does a lot of traveling in windshield time and wants to start live streaming while he's doing windshield time,
Okay.
just having fun and doing radio stuff and everything with his 891 and his ATOS. So follow along if you guys could. Everybody in the chat, if you're not already subscribed to his channel.
Just did.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I'm already subbed. Y'all get over there and give him a sub. He's got some good content. For real.
For real.
Nice.
For reals.
Yeah. So, Ara, one of the other things that you had you started a YouTube channel, and you are going through this process of building this antenna. And one of the things that you had mentioned that in there was, it was basically just for people to kind of follow along with the process of taking a design, finding it, building it out, testing it, going through these revisions for a product that may or may not, that most people may or may not see if it doesn't find final cut that you want to sell it. But there's, I think, a lot of valuable information in that. And one of the things that I'm wanting to get us as a hobby is back into this experimenter's mindset, and not just picking up a turnkey radio and a turnkey antenna and just, and doing that, because basically since the 80s, most radios have been essentially turnkey. There's not much to it. The art of electronics is slowly fading away from our consciousness, and there are people out there that know it, but it doesn't necessarily find itself in our daily lives anymore. We don't, like when I was a kid, I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. If our TV broke, we didn't throw it away and then run down to Walmart and buy a new one. We had to fix it. Somebody fixed it, right? And you could have been without a TV for 2-3 weeks while that was happening. And so for me, that's, I learned to tinker and everything. And it really wasn't until the Navy and I got together and we found that I had this aptitude for electronics, and I've been able to build a wonderful career out of it. Although I didn't stay in electronics very long, I kind of moved into this new fancy thing called computers, and I've made a career out of that. But everything that I do, I learned in electronics. I learned troubleshooting. I can do network diagramming in my head while everybody else is over here drawing on the board. I mean, it's those kind of things that, because I grew up with it. I could walk inside of a computer when I started. They were 1960s vintage Spirit Univac computers that I started on, and that's, like I said, that is something that is just, we're losing it. The program that and Teachers Institute that Steve Goodgame is involved with, and that he runs for the ARRL, and using amateur radio as a means to teach STEM in the schools. I've seen kids that have been involved in that program. They're in schools that are in there, and man, I'll tell you what, it warms my heart to see these kids take off. And it's not necessarily about amateur radio. I think amateur radio is a good practical use of being able to put your hands on science, where a lot of times you learn it in school. It's just theoretical stuff. And as we have found out, since the thought process of teaching students since I was younger, and how my young kids are being taught now is a completely opposite of each other. Because before it used to be, here's a one size fits all education. There you go.
Yeah.
Now they're the STEM and allowing kids to learn different ways. And long story short, love your YouTube channel because of the concept that you're doing specifically with going through that process and letting people see it and showing them that failure is okay.
Yeah, yeah, and man, that is such a great. You're like speaking my language. That is exactly the approach I took to this channel, and I will, before talking even about the channel, I will say, I personally, when I was in high school, I was part of like a robotics team, a first robotics team, which is like the best damn program ever made.
I bet it was.
And it takes you out of this templatized, like you were saying, one size fits all structured education, and gives you a challenge, and it's up to you now to use critical thinking and teamwork and learning, gathering skills and working with people to solve a problem. And that's what real engineering is. And bless all those projects, because I don't think I would have the mindset and focus and drive that I do today without that. That said, I by day I am an engineer, and so you just can't turn that part of your brain off. So when I'm home, dreaming up ideas that eventually have now become some products out in the world that are available, I realized I what people see when you see the tiny paddle or one of my products, what you don't see is the blood, sweat, and tears and screwing up, which happens most of the time, that led to the eventual success, or whatever you define as success. And you know so there was that aspect of it that's been going on forever for me, at least, and specifically with the N6ARA store, for the last few years. But I didn't really document it. Every now and then I might post some like photos on social media and be a quick blurb about something interesting. But I didn't really dive into the documentation of it anywhere. No blog posts or YouTube channel. And it's funny. Last year when I was in Dayton, um, Adam K6ARK, a close friend of mine, invited me over to the YouTubers' house. All these like YouTubers had rented a house, like an Airbnb, and were throwing a party and having fun. And I showed up, and I was the only non-YouTuber there. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, man, maybe I got to start doing this too. This looks fun. All these guys are like goofing around and recording things and capturing the moment. And it was kind of cool to see how the sausage was made in that sort of way. And then around that time, Mark KD7DTS had started his YouTube channel, which then eventually got renamed to Soda Plus. And his philosophy was, his channel goal is, it's not just about him. He brings in other people, and so he kept inviting me to do summits together, and we do activations, and he'd record it. So I got to gain the perspective of what it was like putting content together. I'd never actually experienced. I'd watch the YouTube videos I watch. I'm subscribed to lots of channels. Like I almost only exclusively watch YouTube, and they're all like technical, nitty gritty. Couple thousand subs to a couple 100,000 subs at most. But I love the technical stuff and the Soda channels and Poda channels too, and like gear review and things like that. But I got a snapshot into what it was like to make a YouTube video, and then to be part of it. And one of the biggest things I had, early on was like mic fright. I was really worried about what I was going to say. How was it going to edit together? I got in my own head. Like there's this problem where, you turn this positive feedback loop on yourself, and you're thinking about what you're saying from, from the perspective of the other person, what they're thinking. And like, it was all screwing me up. And as I got a little bit more practice, I'm like, hey, I'm getting a little comfortable. This isn't too bad. And
do you present do you present like user groups or
Oh
yeah, events and stuff like that? I treat it just like that. Like I think I like live content better than I do pre-recording. But to your point, you get that loop going, oh my god, and I'm trying to shift to more live content. But even when I'm doing actual recorded videos, treat it like I'm doing live. Right? If I goof up, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, and I want to say the with live, I feel a little more relaxed because when it's live, and I feel like especially in like cases where you're just chatting with people, you're not really trying to convey a story. You're not trying to, you're kind of doing Q&A, and it's kind of casual and relaxed. And I found that to be a lot easier. And I can present technical content very, I think, fairly well. I have a lot of experience with that. But there was something about turning on a camera and then trying to talk to no one, and trying to imagine somebody else on the other end, and then thinking about how I'm going to cut this together, and like being very precise about the words I'm saying, because I am trying to tell a cohesive story, and I got to nail all the technical words right. That started to really screw with me, and I caught myself doing that as we were recording some of Mark's videos, where he was like, "Hey, what you got today, Ara? What's that little doodad you brought with you?" And then like I start describing it, and then to be like, "Oh wait, no, cut. I didn't mean it to say it like that. Let's try that again." And I kept doing that over and over again. It got really annoying for Mark. He's very patient, thankfully. But I think that sort of gave me the taste of like, once we recorded all these things, then he would do like this like editing magic where I'm like, this is gonna come out like garbage, and then he puts the the video together, and it's like perfect. It's got like everything and music, and like it's really cut together well. Like I didn't realize you could do a bunch of like audio cutting and using B-roll to like make something nice. And as soon as my mind started thinking about this stuff,
Yeah.
it became a rabbit hole. Now I was like, oh, I'm going to all my favorite YouTubers, and I'm going to watch them now and see how they do it. Because I
and
always
tricks.
just was in a passive, mode where I'm trying to absorb the content and not thinking about the medium and how that is being presented to me. And so I fell into like a rabbit hole of like researching how editing works, how all these other channels do it. And like everyone's got their own different way of doing these things and conveying their messages. And then I bought cameras and had to learn about cameras and lighting and like
lighting. Yeah, don't forget lighting.
yeah.
I have found that I enjoy. I don't necessarily make. I don't enjoy the making the content or the editing, but I enjoy the science of YouTube. There's a science behind it, and
Yep.
it's the evaluation, problem solving. It's engineering stuff. It's just in a different form, and just watching the process and seeing what triggers people to hit that like button, certain word combinations that get them to want to click on a link or watch something. And it's kind of interesting because we, as ham radio operators, our YouTube channels, and I think most of us can, if you look at our statistics, you'll see the same thing. 55 and up is the majority, and there's a kind of this transition where we're wanting to bring younger people into the hobby, but we think that they think like we do in our 50s, right? And it's the too long didn't read. It's the 30-minute videos where it's like, dude, you got them for 8 to 12 minutes. That's it. That's all you got. They want to see the action. And, so now thinking about how can we kind of tailor that in our videos to maybe where we do 2 videos, and we do the short video for, the get it out there, and tie it back into some longer form video that would go into the more detail. You record it as one, you do the high level, and then go back and have the follow-up video for the people who want to get in and get the more
the nitty gritty.
Yeah. Which then leads me down a whole nother line of things with videos, because I believe in teaching through demonstration. I love to demonstrate things and show it, but then you do get videos where people in the comments are like, well, you didn't show these 15 steps. You're right. I didn't show you how to get to tie your shoe, but
but at least they're engaged.
That is
that's
true.
good.
That is true.
And remember, you're going to get negative feedback on your channel, but look at it this way: they're talking about you.
That's true.
Yeah, I really don't I think the feedback. I'll say this: the feedback I've gotten on the one video I've released has been just overwhelmingly great.
That's
It's
good.
been almost
That's
too
awesome.
good. Like it feels wrong. I'm sure the trolls and the angry people are coming, but you know,
They are.
my goal and yeah, they are.
Your
my
music's too
goal in all
loud.
of this. Yeah,
That's coming.
Guilty.
you know, my goal in all of this though has been to get people to think and to get people to
Mhm.
learn something
Yes.
and to engage and contribute back. And I will say, so for those who don't know that, I don't think I've even said the channel name yet. It's N6ARA Electronics. I've released one episode of an antenna design that I found and decided to do my own take on. And so that's the tiny Gawant. It's this little, it has a little BNC on this side, a whip antenna on the other, and then an adjustable dial that lets you select the band and bring it into resonance, or tune it, I should say. And I
I'll
actually
take 3.
designed this maybe 4 months ago. I for the video, by the way, I actually had to go back and re-record myself doing the schematic and the layout of the board, which was really really annoying because I'm like, I've already done this. Why am I doing this again? But I'm like, no. This is about conveying my thought process, what I went through, and how I think about designing things, and then I actually had to rebuild one of the Gawants I had already built and relearn all the same, screw ups I made and all the problems I found with it, and then, rev that design. And
As
so
long as your screw ups are repeatable, that's all that matters.
they are, thankfully, yes. In
Yeah,
fact, yeah, they
a
were
repeatable process. Yeah.
And then so the part one was, here's what I found. Here's the theory of operation that I think how it works, because it is a very odd antenna when you look at it. So I pull out the iPad and I doodle like the circuit diagram and how I think the currents are flowing and how it's working. And then I'm like, okay, let's go to KiCad and throw this into schematic capture and do the layout of the board and what are the layout considerations, and then build the board. The board comes in, now get all the parts and put it together. And I did a lot of fast forwarding and cutting to make that process go a little bit faster. And then it's like, put on the SWR meter. How is it working? Why did it do that? And then let's take it out to the field. Is this thing even going to work? And it's like, oh my gosh, it does work. And that was just the process for part one. And honestly, I didn't even know if I was going to make a part two. I didn't know if this was even going to become, popular enough or interesting enough for people. I was learning how to edit. I'd never shot video. Well, it's been a long time since I've shot video. So I had to buy like a camera and lights and all that stuff, and like how to, deal with these like DJI mics and all those fun things, and learn DaVinci Resolve. And so by the time I was done and I put this out there, I was like, we'll see how this goes. And, if it doesn't go well, I'm just going to keep treading forward with what I normally do. Because what I essentially did there was, I opened up my brain and showed people what I'm doing and what my process is like, from design to product or failure. And, the feedback was so overwhelming. I'm like, okay, well now I gotta film part two and make part two. And I am
the
in the
saga
process of that.
continues.
I am not. Yeah. It is in progress, but this is a side hobby. I'm not like Mark Rober or something here where I could do this full time. And I don't have a team. It's just me. So
None of us are getting rich.
Yeah,
No,
exactly.
no.
Exactly. So my hope is to release like one video a month, maybe one video every 2 months is more realistic. And instead of going for quantity, I'm going for like quality, because I could, you could crank out a video every single day if you really wanted to. But it depends on what you're doing there. And it may be kind of cool if it was like little snippets of technical things that make up a really cool, like overarching story over time. But I will say this, and I'm probably rambling too much here, but
No.
I consume a lot of like YouTube technical, channels. Like I love applied science, stuff made here. Alan, W2AEW,
Yep.
all these folks who like build stuff, like they create new hardware and create new. They show the process of engineering, right? Like I can't get enough of that stuff, and so I was like, well, I want to do that. Like I already do that. I just don't record it, and so
Build stuff.
That's sort of the goal of all of this at the end of the day.
Totally get that.
Whew.
Totally get that. I've been building a lot of not stuff that I designed, but I'm building cables for little GMRS repeaters or local repeaters, all-star nodes and stuff like that, and figuring out how to make them better. Dude, I could live that life every day. I love
too
to
much
tinker
fun.
and build stuff. Yes.
Yeah.
See, Freddie, you got a career now after your career, right?
Yeah, and I know, and it's like I've got people asking me this and this and this, and it's all about crowdsourcing with me, you know, because we can all bounce these ideas off each other, but nothing moves fast enough for me, and I never have enough time. So, story of my life. It's like I'm retired, and it's much faster now. So,
Yeah.
it is what it is. Pace yourself, man. It's all I can say. Pace yourself.
Yeah, that was actually the single most important advice I got from Adam K6ARK, who was like, and he sort of follows the same philosophy as like he releases videos when he feels like there's something he likes and he wants to share,
Right.
and he's put the effort into it to make it what he wants. And he's like, you don't have to do a schedule. Like I got a lot of other advice early on was like, oh, you got to be cranking out like this and you got to worry about these stats and like, you know, just keep putting out videos and like, you know, one, one, I think Josh was joking when he said this because like Josh and I live near each other enough that, you know, we've grabbed beers before and, you know, he's like, oh, dude, just make a Baofeng video. That's like all you need. You'll get like, you know, thousands of subs. Just make a Baofeng
It'll blow
video.
up for a month or
12,000
two.
videos.
Yeah.
Yes.
But he's like, you know, you could do that, but it's like, you know, it depends on what you want to do with your channel. Like that'll, you know, that's just one way to grow. And, you know, Adam, I took a lot of Adam's advice to heart and that made a lot more, it resonated with me a lot more was like, I'm going to make something I care about. I'm going to make like little gold nuggets that I could just like put out there and get people's responses and in a way also kind of crowdsource feedback. Like like I actually got a lot of really good feedback from the Tiny Gawant video that I won't be able to incorporate into, this is the Rev B design. But the Rev C design that's in the works, there are literally YouTube comments that fed into that train of thought and into the design process that I was like, oh shoot, I didn't think about doing that. Someone pointed out I forgot to, you know, like I routed something wrong, and if I cut that trace, maybe it might make things a little bit better. And you know, that's just been mind-boggling. Like I'm usually working on these projects alone. Like, you know, professionally, it's a different story, right? You work in teams and stuff, but tinkering at home, a lot of times no one's really reviewing your designs, right? And by the time I get to like production, if I've had an idea, what I typically do is I'll build like 10 or 20 before I even think about pulling the trigger on the production run, and I'll send them out to friends for free and be like, you can have this cool little trinket I've built. Just tell me what you think of it and be brutally honest. Don't worry about my emotions. You know, we're not gonna end this friendship because you didn't like it. Like, just
call me
be
on
honest
all
with me,
my
'cause-
BS.
Yep.
Yeah, please.
Yes.
And it even if you remove all the emotion from it entirely, economically it's problematic if people are, you know, trying to be nice to you in the reviews.
Exactly.
Because it's like this problem is going to scale, right? Like if I sell 1,000 of these, and even if, you know, 10% of them have problems, all the returns I have to deal with and all the cost of that is like way too much. So I'd rather design something that goes out there and is like rock solid. Yeah.
Ara, do
So
you
there's a
have a
question-
GitHub page?
Yep.
Do I have a Git? Oh, I just started one for
Good,
N6ARA. I personally use Git all over the place. I
It's
have
gonna
like,
save your
you know,
life.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Git is the greatest thing in both software, and I also use it for hardware for like revision control of hardware designs. I gotta go look that up now. I forget what my username is. It's github.com/N6ARA. And I only have one repository. And the hardware I built isn't on there yet. The Tiny Gawant isn't on there, but I did make one little like software program to visualize standing wave ratios. Because everyone talks about VSWR, but like I couldn't imagine what the waveforms look like what, because you know there's RF current flowing in both directions, forward and reflected, and like what does that standing wave ratio like look like in terms of voltage. And so I made like a little Python tool that renders that as like a little animation, so you could visualize what a 1-to-1 all the way to infinity to 1 looks like.
Very
But
cool.
I'm hoping to put my hardware stuff on there as well, depending on which hardware projects go there.
So
It's a
Jeff
great
put
question.
in the chat the link to
Thank you.
Ara's GitHub. For those of you who are inclined to go to GitHub,
I wish
get
I'd
some
have
hub.
started with GitHub as far as, you know, some of the reference material I have and the script files that I've worked on and helped with. And oh my God, so much simpler to collaborate, especially.
Yeah. I just have like I get carried away with, especially with anytime I'm writing software, I get carried away with writing stuff, and then eventually I break something and I can't get back to where things were working. And
The
so
unbroken.
exactly. And like you can only control Z across multiple files so many times, and like, and it may even be like days of excursion, and then you're like, oh wait, this is not going to work, I got to go back. And Git has been critical in all of that. Like I'm very religious about good commit messages and committing often enough when it makes sense, and documenting on Git. So yeah, can't praise it much more.
So are you integrating AI into any of the stuff that you're working on?
Not yet.
Not
I don't
yet?
know. I'm, you know, I think with AI, like obviously it's like a big buzzword, and like if you talk to
Yeah.
folks in the Silicon Valley industry, it's like the word to use in business and all that good stuff.
No. I sit and listen to
I-
them talk about it every day.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
But at least my relationship with AI has been, it like many other tools is yet another tool for us right now before it takes over and consumes our entire lives. And I've used it enough times where I've trained myself to know where it's useful and where it's not. But I don't have any products at the moment that use AI. I will say, however, and I don't think I've mentioned this anywhere publicly, the tiny MIDI app that the adapter that plugs into your phone has to pair to your iPhone first, and there's a long history of why this is the case. But with MIDI devices with Apple, you can't pair a MIDI device in the app settings like you normally would with other Bluetooth devices. There has to be a specific app with MIDI devices that pairs it. People have made generic ones that just make it easy, but I was like, I should just make my own iPhone app that lets you pair it. So now the tiny MIDI will pair with your phone, and you're good after that. You don't need to go through the settings every time; it'll remember. But then, when this came up, when I was first coming up with the design, I was like, I don't know how the heck to write an iPhone app. And ChatGPT's coding had gotten just good enough where I could kind of coach it like an intern. Like I'd be like, I want you to do this, and it'd generate the code, and I would, plug it into my phone, and it would execute, and it would crash and be like, okay, give me this error. What the hell does this mean? I don't know Swift. And it'd be like, oh, this means this. And I'm like, oh, okay. And like, I got it to write a good chunk of the app. And like every now and then it would kind of get stuck in a rut where I'm like, I can't get it to just get out of this rut. Like it keeps screwing up. It doesn't understand what I'm trying to ask it to do. And like, then I'd be like, okay, all right, what is this code actually doing? And I like parse through it. I'm like, oh, okay, this library here, this function call, I can kind of understand the syntax, and was able to fix the problem. And then I'll be like, okay, I fixed the problem. Here it is. Let's keep going, keep adding this code. And I've used it in those applications like that, but not much more.
So I've got it's somebody else's device, and I want to improve upon it, and I want to digitize it and make it a little smaller. It's big, and so I used Grok I described to Grok exactly what this was and what I wanted to do, and I was surprised. It punched out. It just went through this whole. It was like talking to an engineer. This whole design process to where it gave me basically a schematic. It was a text schematic a bill of materials, everything I
Yeah.
needed to do to, and a program. So I would tell it I wanted to do X, Y, and Z, and it would, and I wanted to use like the ESP32 processor as opposed and digital potentiometers versus analog potentiometers, things like that. And it just I don't know, 6 iterations, and I had everything ready to go, and I just need to order the parts from DigiKey and
Nice.
build it.
Yeah.
See how it goes, right? And what what I'd like to do if that pans out and it works out and it's something that's good, is actually turn that into a group project of some sort. Not necessarily what I'm doing, but let's find you name it, a new antenna design or a new something where we can, as a group, say let's define what we want to do, use AI to walk through that process to get it, to validate it, and then as a group, as part of the kids table.
Yeah, it's funny. You just reminded me of a use case of AI that I kind of mucked around with a little bit a couple months back now. Um, it was I was trying to get it to give me an MMANA, the antenna simulation software
Yeah.
model of a vertical loaded whip antenna, and it produced like absolute garbage. Like it was just unusable. And then I'm like, okay, let's just go to first principles. Forget everything, write me a Python program that simulates an antenna, like a dipole. And it screwed that up even. And so and I think it's a useful tool, but at least for now, and depending, someone in the comments said it earlier, depending on the model it's been trained on, what resources it's pulling together, it may generate a solution that looks right, but fundamentally is wrong in the back end, or doesn't have the physics behind it. So it's like, it's a useful tool if you have enough knowledge to be able to decipher what is good and bad. But for me, I'll say this: I think I mostly use it as a time saver. I've definitely had it generate me scripts where, like, I don't know. I thought of one the other day. It was like I had a shell script that I needed to make into a batch script. I don't do Windows stuff much, and I'm like, fundamentally, this is just like going into folders and tweaking things. Like I don't know how to write a batch script. I'm like, here's this. Make a Windows version of that, and it's like, here it is. And I'm like, I reviewed it. I wasn't just going to execute random code this thing gave me, but I looked it over. I'm like, this looks about right. I'm like, okay, let's give it a try, and it totally worked, and it was perfect for that. Where had I wanted to do this manually, I would have spent like 2 hours looking through docs and trying to figure out what the right commands are, and then getting errors I don't understand and having to feed that into something and googling what the heck does this error mean. Use cases like that, like it performs, I think, overall really well. That said, in my closing statements, I will say I'm pretty sure it will become a learning tool at some point where you can trust it enough to teach and be more accurate than a normal teacher. But
I see. So I'm in IT, but I'm in healthcare IT. So I see. I'll sit in presentations where they'll use AI to do diagnostic stuff, to see things in images that a radiologist will never see. At least early diagnosis of tumors and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Phenomenal from that. And then I see it on the other side of it. It's like, well, how can we do our own version of WebMD? And it's like, well, now I got to go back and everything has to be validated by, and vetted by a doctor. And it's like, well, the doctor write the article in the first place. I guess. I mean, I don't know. It to me, on one hand, it is phenomenal. On the other hand, I think you have to treat it. You said it right. Treat it like an intern, right?
Yeah.
You can't. You still have to take responsibility for it. So
yeah, exactly.
Law enforcement's starting to use AI to analyze crime scene photos now. Help them see.
Oh, that's interesting.
So yeah, it's got its uses. It's just like you said, you've got to scrutinize everything it tells you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, I can't wait to see that one challenged in court.
It'll happen. You
What-
know it's coming.
the validity. Oh yeah.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. One thing I learned fairly early on in my career is, you know, you can't always, and caveat always, you know, go against the grain and not want the new technology or try the new technology. You know, early on when I first learned writing embedded system software, you know, I was like, everything must be in C or assembly or whatever, and like this newfangled Python thing, it's never going to take off and it's never going to be interesting or good. And like, you know, of course that took off and is like the most amazing language, one of the most powerful languages, and in itself is this tool and it's got its own good, you know, use cases. But you know, early on I sort of learned that lesson of like, you know, embrace the new, learn how it works, you know, don't buy into the hype, but also don't be that, you know, curmudgeon who's like, oh, you got to do it with the assembly, blah blah blah.
It sounds like old
Everything's
people on ham radio.
Yeah.
You got to keep an
We-
open mind about these things.
Yeah, which is another reason the kids table was here.
Amen.
I've just gotten twisted up hearing people curmudgeon and gatekeep and telling people this, you know, they got to do it. They got to do an assembly, right? That, you know, they have to do things a certain way. And back to getting us back to an experimenter's hobby,
Yeah.
where
Mhm.
failure should be the a good thing, right? And you learn from
Absolutely.
it, and, you know, I commented on somebody's post I think it was this morning, where they were talking about regulation and they were talking about some other things, and you know, basically, should the FCC deregulate amateur radio? And I'm like, no, it's not. It's there. Well, first of all, we have very few regulations to begin with in amateur radio compared to the other services. We have
Mhm.
guardrails that they have given us to keep us from, you know, preventing us from interfering with other services, and that's what really started the whole license process to begin with. Other than that, somebody's got to take a test, and the tests, memorize them. But I think one of the things we've run into is that so much of society now is so used to that instant gratification and not having to build that knowledge base. They're
Yeah.
upset because they studied for a 35 question exam and they don't know everything about amateur radio.
Yeah.
And you know, then, or they're going out to do an event outside of a structured, you know, ham shack, and things don't work the way they expect it to, and they get frustrated. And I think that's a commentary on society as a whole right now, because we've gotten so used to that instantaneous, got to have it right this second, as opposed to trying something,
Yeah. Yeah. And getting
redesigning,
used to,
re-engineering.
and just being okay with failure. I think that's
Mhm.
really, really important.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
that's where most folks grow, right? I, you know, it's interesting. When I first got my ham license, I think I was like 15. I got it because I was interested in like emergency comms. I'm like, ooh, there's these like radio systems I can like talk to, um, and it was a lot of fun. It was cool, but you know, after a while, I was kind of like checking into repeater nets and things like that, and it was kind of getting a little boring, frankly. And I got busy with life. There was a lot of other things that came up, and then it wasn't. I didn't actually realize the value in my ham radio license until I was in college, and I decided to start building high altitude balloons because I wanted to build like eventually work into space systems someday. And I'm like, I could build something right now that can go into a near space environment. But all the stuff that's out there are like these really powerful, power hungry APRS repeaters for tracking where the balloon goes. So I'm like, I'm going to start designing my own APRS trackers. And that was like for my undergrad, I was constantly designing and iterating and trying to make it smaller and lighter, and like choosing the latest U-Blocks, you know, GPS module, and reading the data sheet to figure out how to reduce the power consumption so I could have a smaller battery. And like I got to tinker and use the airwaves not as a medium, yet another medium to communicate, but as a medium to experiment, and that is like the golden thing about these bands that we should definitely remind ourselves about and protect, because it's amazing that we could do this, and don't have to like submit paperwork every time we design a new radio kit with the FCC to even be able to operate it. And yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And
Yeah.
for everybody that's clamoring why they haven't seen the new Yaesu radio right now, it's because they're waiting for the FCC to approve it and
Type acceptance.
type acceptance, and that's what you get when you get into manufactured radios.
Yeah.
As amateurs, we can build these radios on our own. You can do anything you want. You can build amplifiers. You can build and design new circuits that have not been used, and all you need to do is to make sure they stay within that framework that the FCC has laid out for us, so we to ensure the safeguard us from interfering with other services.
Yeah.
That cause
And
problems.
and that in itself is a great lesson, right? Like you learn about harmonics and interference just going through that exercise. If you built a radio yourself, and you got to get a little spectrum analyzer or find a buddy who has one, learning and seeing what the spectral plot looks like, and that radios don't put out a perfect 7 megahertz, right? There's harmonics to that. They're not a pure sine wave. There's so much to learn there. That's like a learning opportunity right there.
Amen.
Yeah. Absolutely. John said something in the comments here, and I wanted to bring this up. A few VE teams that frowned when he brought up YouTube Elmers.
And then look at my comment right after that.
Yeah, they're probably old.
Older.
YouTube.
Back in my day.
Can I make a quick comment?
Yeah.
Would you please?
Sorry.
Yeah.
With these sort of things, we all, like, when you're taking in feedback or anytime anyone says anything, whether it's good or bad, there's the noise and then there's the signal. Like, you're receiving everything, and it is about SNR here. Like the those kind of comments when people make them and are like curmudgeons about it, they're in the noise. Like, you don't have to absorb that information, right?
Yeah.
Like, look at the signal.
Discriminate.
Yeah.
Well, and in
a good way.
In a good way, exactly.
Yes.
To that point, YouTube and other forms of video on demand, social media have become the new classroom. That is our new classroom. And I don't know what to say other than it's noise, and I would not worry about that. The reality is that you're going to find people that are very good at teaching, whether they're doing it in person or they're doing it, behind a camera. You're either going to connect with them and receive knowledge, or you're not, and find somebody that you are comfortable with, that you can learn from, and that maybe somebody that you have a two-way communication with. That might be somebody who you just watch their videos. I mean, even Ara's mentioned that he's got several YouTubers that he really enjoys and watches on a regular basis. And so there's a lot of information out there. I heard a comment. I think it was Elon Musk that made this comment 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and he was talking about college degrees and SpaceX engineers. And he made the comment. He's like, we don't care about degrees. I want to know aptitude. Do you have the aptitude to learn this? And if you do, we'll teach you. Do you need to go to college? His comment was 96% of the world's body of knowledge. I think it was 96%. It was high. It was high 90s of the world's body of knowledge is available for free on the internet. It's there. It's there for you to take, and take.
Yeah, and the one I would say interesting thing that I learned about structured education, because I got my undergrad in electrical engineering. At the time, I very much knew a lot of things that my classmates didn't, because I was doing that. that might, like, for example, like I took a controls theory class and you learned about PID controllers, and I had learned about PID controllers, through the internet because you could Google this stuff, and I wanted to tinker and build my own little robots. And so when time came to do the lab, like I already knew all this stuff. I was going around helping other people, get their labs together. And that was really cool. It was like super rewarding. And at the same time, I learned a lot from school myself. But what I didn't realize at that moment, and it wasn't until later after I graduated, was that school gave me the ability to learn and tuned my like learning algorithm, if you will, like how to learn. And gave me the toolbox I needed to actually teach myself in the future. That's not to say everybody needs that, right? Like there are certainly people who don't need school who can absorb this material very, very well. But that there was, I would say there was value in that. It's kind of interesting because when I was in school, I was like, this is stupid. Why am I even like in school? I could just go get a job right now doing blah, blah, blah. But it wasn't until after I was like, oh man, this taught me a lot more than just the raw material itself. Yeah.
So
That's my personal take on it.
Education is important. Doesn't necessarily have to be a college degree.
Yeah.
And that's what I found out. Because like I don't have a formal college education, but I got basically a 4-year electrical engineering degree shoved down my throat in 2 years in the military. They're like, you are going to go to school Monday through Friday 8 to 5, and you will spend another 48 hours every night studying. That's
but
what I got.
But that right there is discipline, right? Like learning discipline and not having to rely on the unreliable motivation, because you could learn things purely on motivation, but it's not a reliable source to driving source. Like learning discipline and waking up every day and going to class, or having folks in your case like be like, you're going to learn this stuff and you're going to do these things, and holding you accountable is a big learning experience there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So any other fun projects? You got the antenna that you're working on. Any other things you can share with us that aren't double?
Oh man. Yeah, it's it's funny. I now that this like YouTube thing is kind of like taking off, and I'm like, okay, well, I've had all these ideas. I should probably organize them into organize and prioritize them all. So I have a new antenna design that's sort of like a multi antenna that does a bunch of different things that I've dreamt up for a long time. I don't know if it's going to work, but I'm really excited because it's going to compact a lot of people's kits if it does work. That might be episode 2. Episode 3, I'm hoping, will be about a 10 gigahertz transverter, like QRP transverter that's CW only, but it's very, very small and doesn't require a big dish. And like the idea being like, what if you could do 10 gigahertz SOTA more often? Because in SoCal, by the way, Mike, I don't know what area you're in, but I do see the dishes in your wallpaper. If you have a community of folks who have 10 gigahertz gear, folks love that stuff, and especially during the ARL contest, the 10 gigahertz and up contest, those airwaves are like blasting with people trying to make contacts. But what I noticed was I participated 2 years ago, and I built this. You can sort of see the dish in the background here. A SOTA portable 10 gigahertz rig, which is pretty heavy. Like all the gear and batteries you need to bring with it. You can't fit into a backpack, but you're going to be miserable doing it. And I had a ton of fun on that band. Like it is a blast to work that band. It's really bizarre because you're bouncing radio waves off like rain scatter, and like you're getting bizarre Doppler shifts from like hail. It's really cool. Like I could talk about that
when
for
I
hours.
was at the event where I took this photo, the VHF Club's picnic back in the summer. They were getting Doppler off airplanes. We're in Western New York and Southern Ontario, Canada, very active groups in VHF and above. And it was just weird to hear the Doppler shift after, and I don't know what bands exactly they were on, but probably, if you look in the back, you can see what the dishes were for. And it was just neat to see and hear and experience some of that stuff firsthand.
It's such a
wild.
cool media, like a frequency or band, and like and tropospheric ducting, where like various air densities could cause like waves to kind of travel much longer distances. It's super cool. I honestly, I'm more excited about that video, not of the build, but of the check out what this band actually does.
Yeah.
It's really freaking
Result.
cool.
Yeah.
When you get
So I'm-
ducting, it's such a wild experience. Of like,
Yeah.
holy cow! Like I'm getting this far with this little, and it's
Yeah.
amazing.
And so my hope is that whatever I end up designing will be like a little 10 gigahertz, a small kit that you could add on to your existing intermediate frequency kit, like a IC705 or KX2 or whatever you have. As long as it could be backpack portable and tiny, that's sort of the goal. So I'm going to be opening my brain up yet again and going, this is the ambitious thing I want to do. I don't have microwave design experience. I do a lot of embedded systems, digital design work, but doing like high speed RF stuff is outside my knowledge space, but I want to learn it. And so that episode I'm super excited about, because you're not only going to see me designing and testing and building and iterating, but you're also going to be seeing me going like, what the heck do I even need to learn to be able to do the thing I'm about to do next? And like, what free tools are there out there? Because half of these programs are like $10,000 a license seat, like HFSS or whatever. And let's see if the open source ones work. So it's going to be cool. I'm definitely excited about that, but I need to refine my YouTubing skills first.
Have you thought about photonic radio?
Oh, dude, yes.
There we go.
I have a buddy who lives up in Seattle that has started messing around with that stuff, and it counts. Like you could do like laser comm, and that counts as for SOTA. Like you could do a summit to summit with optical. It's
cool.
It's yet another like one of the million ideas that like I just wish I had more time to do all this stuff. But
so you got a friend that's looking at has anybody done it? The best I could find
I think
was
so.
Something in the 70s, and it was ginormous equipment. They just don't have they didn't have the miniaturization that we have now.
Yeah, I'm fairly certain it's been done. The first thing I'm remembering right now is a QST article I saw in the last 2 years that was a highlight article on doing optical stuff. But I haven't really dived into it much, but it would be really cool. Like it's a whole nother, yet another rabbit hole, right?
I mean, they've been modulating light and shoving it down fiber for a long time.
Yeah.
Why would you put it over the air?
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to get into the narrow bandwidth issues that you get into with the high frequency microwave stuff, but yeah. But you never know. Bounce it off the moon.
It has lots of potential.
Well, yeah. You need a lot of power for the moon.
Bouncing stuff off the moon. Have you ever tried any of the EME stuff or anything like that?
I would love to. Oh my gosh. I had a friend of mine who built like a ladder, super Yagi and tried to do it, and he had some moderate success with it. I think he was able to work a station with not FT8, but it was another one of the digital nodes that's designed for
JT65.
JT65.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it was JT65. It takes 48 seconds or whatever per transaction.
Yeah,
it's quite longer.
It's cool. I would love to. Like that's, I haven't recently thought about it, but it would definitely be something is going to be on my radar at some point, I'm sure. Has anybody here messed with it? Like made an EME contact?
Not me. There's a local hand that's trying to get into it. He's really into doing satellites. And
nice.
I've talked to him a lot on the repeaters, and he says he wants to get into EME. He's just trying to get the equipment together to do it. He has some of the stuff, and I said, I want to tag along when you do it. So
yeah, definitely on the to-do list for sure.
You're not doing that with your Bowfangs, I can tell you that.
You never know.
Challenge accepted.
I could build an amp too.
Put 100 Bowfangs together into a satellite. Yeah.
Phased
A
array.
phased array. Yeah. If my YouTube channel takes off and I have YouTube money suddenly, maybe those crazy ideas might come to be. We'll see.
That's now research. money.
That'd be interesting to see.
Oh,
Yeah, pretty soon,
yeah.
a year from now, we'll be seeing Ara. He'll have his own save it for parts type channel.
Oh, save it for parts. That's the other guy. I
Yes.
love his channel.
Yeah, he's phenomenal.
Oh my god.
He's always the way he just recycles and reuses stuff and does it. Yeah, I like his channel.
And he owns it too. Like he leans into the whole like, yeah, I'm hoarding, I love this.
Good
Look
for
at
him.
this thing I got for super cheap. I actually have a tailgater dish. Oh my god, this weird Apple thing again. Sorry for the thumbs up. I have a tailgater dish in the back that is like this like dish the TV dish company made these like RV domes that have a little like pan tilt dish inside.
Ooh, yeah, I think I've heard
If
of
you
those.
pop those like white pods open, there's just like a little like dish with a Azel motor system, and I think it's designed for like 11 gig or 10 or 9 gig. But if you take the feed horn off and you put your own feed horn on there, you could turn it into a 10 gig model. So my plan, this is actually episode 4, is the hope, to get it done by the ARL 10 gigahertz and up contest, is to modify that tailgater with a 10 gig feed horn and then run it to my Down East microwave transverter to essentially build like a automated 10 gig system that I can roof mount onto my car and drive around and like give it coordinates, like point here, I want to work this station, and have it like pan over, beam at them, work them,
Nice.
and then like drive to another grid square and like work everybody again. So that we'll see. I have more ideas than I have time. So we'll like, who knows?
Or
what's gonna
point
happen.
it at somebody's house and make their toaster dance.
Yeah, right.
Well, anytime that there's new equipment available in the microwave
There you go.
space, that's a good thing, because like you can't say enough, like use it or lose it with some of the bands and
Oh, yeah.
and and that's, I don't have anything in the microwave space because I'm relatively new as far as it being a ham, but you can't just go commercially buy a lot of these things like as easy as
And if you can, they're
and like
expensive.
HF, you're having to do so much modifications and include transverters and all kinds of other gear, and there's not a whole lot of options. A lot of stuff's homebrewed, it seems.
Yeah, the 10 gig community. I mean, out here where I'm at in SoCal, there's the San Bernardino Microwave Society, and these guys are like mostly all like ex-RF engineers, like radar guys who like know their stuff, which is great because you could learn a ton from them. But most of their gear is all homebrew stuff that they build, and they over the years have accumulated all the test equipment you need to be able to build this stuff. And like go look up a 10 gigahertz, like a spectrum analyzer that could do 10 gig, or a vector network analyzer. Like you can't find a VNA that does 10 gig for less than $3,000, and that's like a used from a lab from the 1970s piece of junk that's like probably out of Cal. So there is a large barrier to entry, but what we're seeing nowadays is the test equipment's getting better and staying cheaper. Like the Tiny SA Ultra will go up to I think 12 gig now, so you could get like a kind of a crappy spectrum analyzer, but it works.
I think it's 5.8.
Oh, but
It's like
if
5,
you turn on
5.8.
ultra mode, it'll actually use the second harmonic of the 5.8 and go up to like 11 something or 12.
Okay.
It works. And like I had a little 10 gig source, and like it showed up on, the spike showed up in the spectrum. I was like, okay, at least I know it's alive, but it's not useful in that like you can't take a power measurement off of it. You can sort of do relative dB measurements, but it's not very linear. So you can't really trust it beyond that. But it is like, is it transmitting? Does the bandwidth or the signal look the way I think it should look? Yes, but other than that, not so much. My hope though is these these products become more, more people start building 10 gig stuff. And I think the more people who have it, does that work really?
Yeah.
Oh my God, what the hell?
I don't
Okay,
think I
cool. Does it do Broken Heart? No.
I don't know.
Nothing. I got.
I thought if you did 2 thumbs up, I gotta get it. There we go.
Oh wow,
it works. Yeah.
You can see who the Mac users are now.
Yeah.
As if
I have a
our
Mac, but I'm
AirPods
pretty
didn't
sure I
give
have it
away.
turned off because I think I accidentally did that once, and I was like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah,
even turn that off. I had no idea that was even a thing.
Yeah,
Mike did it right in the
mine's
middle of a presentation.
Yeah.
Oh, I got her.
Anyway. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know you don't even have to do you can go to the little guy in the screen icon up there in the top bar, and it'll let you do it. You can do all kinds of. Oh, look at
You
me.
got a little guy in your screen.
I don't
up
see a
in the-
little guy on my
in the
screen.
top bar.
I would have a woman on my screen than a guy.
No.
But
I'm on a
Mm.
Windows 11 machine right now, so I'm kind of screwed in that aspect.
Well,
I
look at
guess.
you, Freddie Mac.
The Mac's downstairs. They don't call me Freddie Mac for nothing.
Yep. So we're God, wow, time flies when we're having fun.
Boy, that's what I'm
Hour
saying.
40 minutes. So
Whoa.
you're going to be at Dayton. You're going to be bringing product to sell. Are you setting up at the 4 days in May too? At the
Yeah. So I'll be at 4 days in May. That like Thursday for sure, where all the
Okay.
talks happen, and then vendor night. I actually did vendor night last year, and I like almost sold out of everything I brought with me. I was like lucky that I at least didn't sell out of everything or anything, but I got really dang close. And that was just an hour and change, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it was like
Were you
2
at the
hours long or
table?
something like that.
Were you at the same table with Adam?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you looked familiar, but I don't think we talked. I was talking to Adam about I got like every
dude,
one of Adam's
Dayton. The Dayton experience was so weird because I kept seeing people. I'm like, I have seen your face like 10 times on YouTube, and I have no idea who you actually are. But
yeah.
And then it's like gonna be awkward. Like, what do you do? Walk up to them like, you look familiar. Like,
I had that exact same experience.
Yeah. Maybe I should have been like, you look familiar. Do you have a YouTube channel? But no, it's gonna be fun. FDIM, by the way, 4 days in May. If you haven't been, highly recommend it. It
very
is
cool.
Very cool, especially if you're in like QRP stuff. Like all the home brewers and tinkerers like love hanging out there, and it's a blast.
I want to be able to try to make it over to vendor night. I usually drive in on Thursday, and
nice
and stuff. So I didn't do it last year, but I think this year I'm gonna try to get there, leave earlier, and at least go there that evening and
yeah. I got over there later, and things were still going on.
Yeah,
there were still plenty of people. I think they kicked us out at some point, but I mean, it was still going on. It was a good time.
I like the QRP stuff, so I definitely want to check out some of those things.
Well, I tell you, I feel like the QRP group of people is where the innovation's at. They're always doing something. They're always building new things. They're always tinkering. They're not
super tinkerers.
The things can be less forgiving when you're using lower power.
Yeah, exactly. I honestly, and the test equipment gets easier to deal with. Like, dealing with 100 watts is kind of a pain. With QRP, yeah, like, just tens of volts to power these things and not a whole lot of current, and you could build stuff at home really easily. And there's and because of that, there's the huge community and tons of write-ups. Like what's it? The folks who run 4 days in May, they have a magazine, QRP Quarterly. These magazines, they have all kinds of cool like projects and stuff with schematics that you could build at home, and they talk about the theory. Like, they don't hold back, which is fantastic. Yeah, great folks.
Well, awesome. Anybody got any final questions or anything?
No, I'm good. It's been a great episode, Ara, and we appreciate you coming on and
oh man,
bringing us up to speed on your channel, man.
Oh,
Oh,
excellent.
thank you so much for having me. This is kind of surreal to be talking to so many people about this stuff, and
It's
No,
good.
and
stuff.
I'm
the
definitely looking
engagement has
forward to
just been
more.
so
This is-
overwhelming.
Yeah. I just want to say I'm definitely looking forward to more because I appreciate me not being the engineer, IT. I'm not the, not being the I'm the lobbyist, right? And so what I've always appreciated about ham radio is when it takes me out of my comfort zone and I do things that I normally wouldn't do, whether it's building antennas, soldering, learning about propagation on Mars, like all this, like totally out of the box stuff. And I appreciate having channels where they will encourage people to try things differently, experiment and stuff, because sometimes like we all need that little push.
Yeah,
As
man.
hams, like we're so indecisive
We're-
sometimes,
For
and
real.
Yeah.
and
but
you
we're
need that
curious,
little
right? Like
nudge and that encouragement to no, try this. You can do this on your own and everything and stuff. Because that's how, at the end of the day, I think so many of us learn in the hobby is the hands-on, whether it's operating or building, and it's good to have content that's like Adam and you and others that making things and experimenting and encouraging others to do the same. So there's your flowers.
Thanks. Thank you. That's really sweet. That's very kind. Thank you.
All
More to
right.
come.
So, real quick, around the horn, Mike, what you got? What do you have coming up? You premiered a video tonight.
I did.
Yeah.
I had 2 videos this week. I'm on this live stream, and we got a live stream Friday.
Yes, we do.
Right, we
Yeah,
do.
you want to talk about
Yeah,
that real
so-
quick? Well,
Yeah, just real quick. The 21st, if you go by the day, Friday is the official 2-year ham-anniversary, we'll call it, for Tuesday Night Ham Radio. And got started 2 years ago on March 21st. And we continued with our typical playlist of premieres on Tuesday. And now it's Wednesday and Thursday as well. But we wanted to get everyone together who's free for just happy hour live stream. It's not often you get more than a handful of us together on the same stream at the same
For
time,
real.
so it should be fun and interesting. So yeah, we're doing it at 8:00 Eastern on Friday, and I'm sure Tim will have a link out shortly, and you'll start seeing us
Yes.
promoting it. But hopefully, you guys can join us. So
Come
look
have some
look
fun.
for the social media.
Yeah.
Your socials. Check your socials, as the kids like to say.
Yeah.
How about you, Jeff? What do you got going on?
I'm just working on a video. I'm gonna do something different, I think. But I was gonna go away this weekend, but good thing I canceled it. Had an injury beginning of the week, so I'm kind of dealing with that and traveling and moving all my stuff and 2 dogs would not be a fun time. So good call on that. So we'll see what happens.
Awesome. Freddie Mac, how about you? Any
I
new,
tell you what, I've been, of course, I dropped a couple of videos. What was that, last night? Wow. I guess it was last night on doing some CSS modification on the Supermon interface for All-Star Link. Got those, just came out. Been doing I do a lot of All-Star stuff, but I've got a video coming out next week about how to install DV Switch server on a PC. I did one earlier a few weeks ago about DV Switch server on a Raspberry Pi. It's not much difference, but it's a little trickier. So I got a request from Steve, I think his name is, N6ARA. He's one of the co-writers of DV Switch. So, these little instructional videos that I put out really help folks get along through the process. Maybe there's less support questions to for the group. So that one's coming out next week. And I did a K8 MRD video upgrade today. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh,
I did the firmware upgrade on the VTech VR N76. Fiddle. They made the text bigger. And I tell you what, I like it.
I didn't know
because-
they made the text bigger, but I saw the yellow.
Yeah, they made the
instead of
text
red.
bigger. So it's like, hey, it's actually pretty clean and nifty.
Ah.
Neato, mosquito. The firmware upgrade's kind of big. But hey, it worked.
Can you play Wolfenstein on there?
I'm working on it. I got Doom, and Doom 2. So no, I was actually shooting for Duke Nukem 3D.
Dude,
But,
there you go.
So far, it's just Pong.
Nothing wrong with Pong.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get Pac-Man one day.
Never can tell. Never can tell. It's. I mean, Linux can do anything.
Ara, anything you talked about a few videos that you're working on? Anything in the short term that?
Yeah, I think the short term is really going to be the Tiny Gawant Part 2. So taking the existing design from the first video and iterating it at least 2 times. And if everything works out, I might even have some kits available for folks to build one on their own. I actually talked to the guy who coined the term Gawant, and he actually granted me, the ability to sell them with that name and all that stuff, which is really sweet of him.
Did you get that in writing?
I did, yes. He actually lives in Japan, and he was just super kind. He's like, "Oh, I just want people to use this antenna. Designed it out there, put it out into the world for folks to use." And I didn't want to use the name, and I also didn't want to use the design because I didn't, I don't want to infringe on any like patent stuff, and I don't want to upset anybody. But he was like, "No, please go do what you want." And obviously I've added my own circuits and my own twists that you could see in the YouTube video. So it is its own design in a way that hopefully, and I'm saying all this without having actually done all the tail end of the work. Like Rev C isn't done yet, so maybe there won't be one. Maybe this product will completely fail. We'll see. We'll find out. That's the beauty of the channel. I don't even know what's happening. Yeah.
There you go. That is a cliffhanger you need to leave it with.
Yeah.
Right?
That's what I'm saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I started filming a video this week, and as I sat down to edit it, I realized I needed to put a warning and a disclaimer on the front side of it. And now I'm like, do I really want to put this video out? It's having to do with testing energized circuits, and I'm not sure if that's if that's the
Listen.
I think people need to learn electrical safety, and that's kind of what I said in the beginning, right? I'm not like that one engineer guy that's always blowing circuits up.
Electro boom.
Yeah. I don't know, but definitely, I preface it with if you're not familiar with doing this, and you probably shouldn't do it if you don't feel comfortable and things like that. So I don't know. I think I'm going to have to flip a coin and maybe talk to my attorney about that one before I publish it.
Just ask ChatGPT. Be like, you're a lawyer.
Yes.
What would you're a lawyer?
Just terrible advice. I'm not actually.
But there's some value in it. Like, so it was a battery backup, and I'm looking at. It was a used one I got, and looking at the inverter in it and the sine wave coming off of it, measuring it, testing the batteries to make sure it's good. I mean, it's doing the sniff test on it. There's visually inspecting it before I put it into service and that kind of thing. But I am testing, 120 volt circuits and doing it, and sticking an O-scope in there too, which is a whole nother safety thing. If you're not familiar with powering an O-scope on the same circuit that you're testing it with.
Safety third.
Human and instrument safety.
Yeah, you'll find out quickly how that works out.
Smells like battery.
Like so. So that's kind of where I'm at on that one, but. I think that's going to bring us to a close, and we are going to get out of here. Everybody have a phenomenal rest of your night. We have tomorrow night. They have is it Punk Rock Ham Radio? It's got a premiere tomorrow night. So Alan's got a premiere tomorrow night, leading into Coffee and Ham Radios. I'm not sure who their guest is. Then of course, Josh will be live streaming Saturday night with his usual topic and the follow-on after chat, which is always good. So if you do have questions about amateur radio and stuff like that, that's a good spot to get in there, because there's a wealth of knowledge in that after chat. But I think we'll call it a night then. So,
well, thanks for having us on.
Yep, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having us. This is a lot of fun. Really appreciate it.
I got learn how to get my mouse on the button here with my left hand and put my right hand up there. All right. Say bye, everybody.
Bye bye. 73s,
Yeah.
everyone.
All right.
Come on.
72.